how to take a web application and deploy it to AWS S3. What that means is your Angular app or your HTML CSS app or your ReactJS app, take that and then make it live so that the whole internet or your family or if it's a real company, everyone can go to that URL and actually see it. So here's kind of my background. I kind of started off with a different background. I worked fast food in Texas, and then I started a World of Warcraft business for about 8 months. And then they changed some rules, and that wasn't feasible anymore. So then I started looking at going back to school for computer science, and I went to a community college in Texas, and then came back to Portland because of code school, and from there, data entry plus like Epicodus, and I kind of got my first experience like programming, things like that. Once I graduated from Epicodus, I started working at Nike in the innovation engineering department as an application engineer. And shortly after that, about 8 to 9 months later, I left to a consulting company for cloud development around like AWS. And then in November of last year, I left that consulting company and started my own, and I've been doing that ever since. So at Serverless Guru, just to give a background, it's a common question when I say Serverless Guru. It doesn't really translate to anything. So we build full stack applications like React, Angular. We build the front end and the back end, all the database, automation, all that stuff. We migrate applications for companies that already have something, but they want to optimize it. Then we do like training around cloud development, training around serverless, and then we also review application architecture as well as augmenting staff. So we'll go into a company and work as like a single contributor on a team and just kind of help out on a project. So AWS. This is something I didn't have in my last presentation when I gave this talk, and so I was just jumped straight into like doing the code and then didn't actually have like the context. So AWS, Amazon Web Services, is a cloud computing platform which allows you to take advantage of the thousands of engineers that Amazon has to allow you to build these really crazy applications. Like they just released a service that allows you to hook up to a satellite in space in case you wanted to do some satellite space application stuff. So only Amazon could do something like that. So that's what AWS is. How can it help your career, and where do I start? So AWS, cloud computing, they also have services to build enterprise applications, so web, mobile, as well as like little things like that. I think they call it, like Space Link or something like that basically allows you to hook into the satellites. But other than that, there's like very like generic services like databases and hosting and all these things that are more typical in web and mobile applications. And then also when you get started, there's a 12-month free tier, so you can pretty much build everything that we're going to do today, as well as a whole bunch of other stuff for free, because they're around that model of give it away to people, allow them to get hooked onto it, and then once they're hooked onto it, then let them run from there, and then of course the bill goes up. So yeah, and so for this free tier, you can actually do things like have like 5 gigabytes of storage in Amazon S3. And so that's really useful because that's like image storage, file storage. So if your application does things around like your Instagram app or something, you could store images in S3 up to 5 gigabytes, and that's enough to build a prototype and not actually pay any money. So you can do a lot of like rapid prototyping and things like that for pretty much no money at all. And how can it help your career? There's a lot of high market demand for AWS developers. There's a path to higher positions. So what's really cool is because you're at code school or you have some coding background, if you take that and you apply AWS to that or Google Cloud to that, it allows you to offset. And so then you can do programming and also the cloud side. So then companies will bring you in to work with their teams and then also kind of optimize these existing applications. And it's almost like it's a fast track to like higher positions, because even senior developers don't know cloud stuff. So they may be a 10-year Java developer, but they may not know anything about AWS. And so immediately you can add value to a team, whereas normally you would have had to kind of slowly work your way up to that point. And then also career growth, so opportunity in the cloud. So you can kind of go kind of a different direction. This is the kind of direction that I went after code school. So AWS plus developer equals cloud engineer. So cloud engineers kind of do programming and architecture and automation and spin things up and optimize and all that stuff. but at the end of the day, you're still coding actively. And that's kind of what a cloud engineer is. Obviously, salaries can fluctuate, but what's really nice about it is that skill set is what got me hired at Nike immediately after code school, because nobody on my team at Nike, even though they were extremely experienced, had knowledge in that specific area, and so that's where I came in and brought value. So where do you start? You can do a free account. You can play around, break stuff. There's no way you can mess up your AWS account. It's completely isolated. As long as you turn things off, you're not going to get charged. Also, Googling how to build X with AWS. So how to build a website, how to build a mobile app, how to build a robot. I don't know. You can do a lot of stuff. And then also, you can prepare for AWS certifications. So if you're looking for kind of a how do I tell the industry that I actually have this knowledge, certifications are a very easy way to just get started. And you can also track your progress. Like once you get it, then you know, okay, I'm at this point, I've committed to it, I've actually done some stuff around it. So this here is kind of a full flowchart of the different AWS certifications that are out there. So you've got everything from cloud practitioner to solutions architect. These kind of bottom row down here, this would be your associates. So anything around the associate level is going to be kind of an entry-level certification. And then on the higher end, you're going to have the professional certifications. If you just get an associate certification, immediately that's going to put you like in the ranking system on like LinkedIn, things like that. You're going to start trending a little bit more, especially when you're looking for jobs, and it can make a huge impact. A lot of my friends that got AWS certifications while we were at Epicodus, they got hired through LinkedIn. Most of the stuff, like the job opportunities that I've had, come through LinkedIn as well. So that's a great resource to kind of post it out there after you make the progress. Here's two main certifications that I would recommend. The first one is the Developer Associate. So there's a website called acloud.guru, and that's kind of the main hub for learning this stuff. And then there's the Solutions Architect Associate, also on acloud.guru. And they changed the course a little bit, so this number up here for the course follows 65% of what's tested. That used to be like 95%. So like when I got the certification, you know, you watched a 12-hour course, you took it, and you passed, and it was just straightforward and easy. They've updated it quite a bit, but these are still like the first areas that I would focus on, except now I would start with the Solutions Architect and then move to the developer afterwards. And that's kind of a switch from like 2 years ago. And so exam tips, focus on the labs, ignore the pricings for each service. They throw a lot of like random material in there. Read forums. This is great. Obviously, as developers, we're on Stack Overflow all the time. We're on GitHub issues. Same thing for learning cloud. You just want to communicate with the community, read all the stuff that they've asked questions about, and then kind of help you prepare from there. Also, FAQs are heavily tested. And then, of course, applying your new skills to a real project, and that's kind of what we get into today. So here's some resources. You have Linux Academy, AWS certification login. That's for scheduling your exam, as well as a cloud.guru. And the cloud.guru has like 40 courses on like all sorts of cloud stuff, so it's enough to overwhelm you with information and knowledge. All right, so demo. So I'm going to do this live, completely live. So what that kind of entails is looking at the Create React App page. We're going to basically create a React app, deploy it to AWS S3, and then basically see it live. So we'll just jump straight in. So Create React App is a way to quickly spin up a ReactJS application without having to do all the boilerplate code yourself. So it's pretty quick. So we're just going to follow this command here, which is create React app. There we go. So it's installing everything. It's getting our build scripts ready, allowing us to run a local server, all this stuff without us having to actually write that code. And the second that it's up, we'll cd into the directory and then actually run it. I'm going to try to make this bigger as well. So now we can do a cd into React app, and then we'll run yarn start. So as you can see, it opens up a new browser window, and the second that it connects, it should show, there it is. So this is our website. There's already HTML, JavaScript, CSS already built into the project when you first do this like create React app, and now you can just get going. Close that down. And so what we're going to do is now switch over to the AWS console, and we're going to look at signing in. We'll create an S3 bucket, and that'll kind of store our HTML, CSS, JavaScript files, and then we'll actually upload them up. Okay, so inside this screen, this is kind of what the AWS management console looks like. Down here is all that crazy list of services and all these things. So you can do everything from like machine learning here to building business applications, application integrations for doing things like sending notifications or text messages or emails, to basically extend your applications to be a little bit more robust. They've even added in like AR and VR. So there's a ton of crazy stuff. I haven't messed with all this before because there's like hundreds of services, so I'd probably stay within like 10 or 12 total. So for storage, we're going to go to something called S3, and we're going to create a bucket, and the bucket name will be React App Demo. These have to be globally unique, so I'm assuming that other people have done React App demos and then called their bucket name that, so we'll just call it React App Demo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll leave it in the US East North Virginia region. And then we're going to skip these properties. So there is this checkbox here for block all public access. We're going to make a website. It needs to be publicly accessible, so I'm going to turn that off. And then we will create a bucket. Okay. So now inside this bucket, we're going to upload our files. So the first thing that we need to do is switch back to our terminal. And I'm going to use something called Visual Studio Code to kind of open this up and then copy it. So you can actually do an inline text editor here. So that's kind of what this thing at the bottom looks like. It's a little bit hard to see. Just for clarity, I'll do it up here. So we're going to do yarn build. And this is going to take those website files and then like compress them, minify them, and allow them to be more easily uploaded to AWS. And it should do this underneath something called build. So that would be our build folder. And you can see in here there's an index.html, there's our fave icon, some JavaScript files, all that stuff. So what we're going to do is, let me open this up in Finder. So we're going to grab these files. Actually, we should do it this way. So I'll upload it. Desktop. Build. So I'm going to grant public access to all these files because these are HTML, CSS, JavaScript files. And then we can upload it. Okay, then we're going to have to create a couple folders. So the first folder is going to be called static. And this is just kind of mirroring what we have locally. So we have this static folder. And I just need to create a CSS, JS, and media folder. So what we're basically doing is recreating our local folder on AWS S3. And that will allow us to actually show our website. Okay. And then we can go into each one of these and upload the files. Once again, we'll give it public access. And so I'm kind of showing the manual way to do this. After we do this one time, we'll just kill the whole website and we'll do it in like an automated way, so it's a little bit easier. Okay, then one folder left for our JavaScript files. So all these files that I'm uploading, that you see these .js, these were all created automatically when we did that yarn build command. So we haven't created anything so far in this whole website. There's just one terminal command. And so now with this, we're going to turn on something called static web hosting. So static web hosting is kind of the core concept of all this stuff, is that you can take this S3 bucket and turn it into a website. So let's say use this bucket to host a website. Then we're going to call the index document index.html. And we're also going to call the error document index.html, which may be slightly confusing, but when you're working with like single page applications like Angular or React, everything routes back to index.html. So what we're basically telling it to do is that if we try to go to a page that doesn't exist, redirect to index.html, then it will then redirect to the correct page. And it's kind of this like, it's a weird workaround that they have, but without this, React and Angular application wouldn't work. All right, so we've got bucket hosting. So let's go ahead and look at this. And there it is. So we now have our site running on React app demo.s3 website, and everybody that's here could actually go to this URL on their phone or something and actually see this loading. So what we're going to do instead now, and that's awesome by the way, because that was really quick. We're going to delete the whole thing, and then we'll actually do it through what's called a CLI. So we can delete this and all of our hard work. And then I'll go to, so Serverless Viewer actually has a Medium blog where we actually do deep dive tutorials on AWS, Serverless, ReactJS, Angular. So for instance, this is kind of the tutorial that was written by one of my team members, and it kind of goes through exactly what we're doing. So if you wanted to go back through here, learn how to set up an AWS account, as well as set up your credentials locally, you can definitely do that here. And the first thing that we're going to do is scroll down to this command. So this command is going to be what automatically syncs our local files to AWS S3. So I'll copy that. And then if we switch back to our terminal, just to confirm, we have a build folder, and that's what we're going to be uploading. And then I'm going to paste this command. So we're kind of skipping a couple steps. Obviously, how does my computer authenticate with AWS? How is that happening? If you do want to learn the details of that and go through step by step, definitely check out this article. But for now, we're going to just assume that we've already done that and just kind of move forward. So we're also going to add something called a profile. And because the company that I run is actually a consulting company, and all our projects are AWS, I have like 5 different client AWS accounts, credentials on my computer. So this profile command allows you to specify which AWS account to go to. Before we had this, sometimes you would upload code to the wrong person, and that's not a good thing. So AWS has a solution for that, and it's called profiling. So the first thing that you probably see here is this S3://. This is similar to HTTP://. It's basically an address. So what we're going to do is switch back to the AWS console. We're going to find our bucket name, which is up here, and then we're going to copy that so that it actually knows where to upload the files. And then with that, we're good to go. This ACL, that stands for access control, and we're basically setting it to public read. So if you remember when we were going through each dropdown, we were setting the read access to public, and so we're just doing this all automatically. So this hopefully should work. And you can see that it starts uploading all the files. And we're done. And now if we switch back and refresh the page, all of our files are there. All the folder structure is there. And we just saved even more time. So now if we switch back to the static web hosting URL, we can see our website's back up. And just to show this one more time, we can delete all of these and then try to go to the website immediately. So now if we refresh the page, it's dead, right? So we switch back to the terminal, run one command. It's uploaded, we refresh the page, and we're back. So it's not instant, but it's very fast. So if you're thinking about making updates to your website, doing things like that, this is something that you can really just run with. And then past that point, you can take this as far as you want. So for instance, we're using React app demo 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could also switch this to be mySuperAwesomeCompany.com, and there's services on AWS to help with that. Or you could also do HTTPS. So you can have HTTPS mySuperAwesomeCompany.com, and AWS supports setting up HTTPS as well, so you have that encryption level. And all that stuff can be done pretty easily, and it's all automatable. So you take this type of knowledge, and then you start getting on phone calls and interviews with companies, and you're going to really impress their lead developers and anybody that's trying to hire for cloud developers and stuff like that. So to switch back, just to kind of go into a few more things. I think we're just blazing through on time, so let me kind of view this. So that was the demo. What was applied there can be applied to Angular, Vue, HTML, CSS, pretty much anything. All we did there was take files from our local computer and then upload it to AWS, and then immediately have a website running. And so as you're moving through, if you're in code school currently, or if you're building a side project, if you want to actually get something live very quickly, as you notice there, we deleted that whole website, and we got it back to deployed in less than a minute. So if you take your project, you build it all locally, and then you want to actually show it off to your friends or family or investors or however deep you want to go with it, that's a great way to just throw something up on the internet and then have it ready. So as I mentioned, Serverless Guru has a Medium account. So this is our Medium publication for Serverless Guru. We write articles from everything from beginner articles with AWS, Serverless, Google Cloud, all sorts of stuff, Angular, React, and they're all made for free, and they're meant to kind of help people like myself when I was coming out of code school understand how to do this stuff. And so I'm writing from that perspective every time that I do it. And also, as you notice, Jan Stoneman here, he's one of our cloud developers on the team. And we pretty much have 4 developers that are actively writing stuff. So it used to be just me, and maybe I would put out 1 article a month or something. Now we're actually actively rolling stuff out. So, and then here is the deploying Angular app to AWS in seconds or 10 minutes. So this will kind of go through how to do exactly what we just did with React, but for Angular. And there is some differences, so this article will cover that. And then this is the one that we just went through, deploy ReactJS app with S3 hosting. Down here, we actually have, I guess I can't zoom in, but we do actually have a YouTube version of this, a video. And it's about 10 minutes. And then here's our YouTube. So we're still growing it, but we're releasing stuff down here, creating a website using AWS AppSync. So if you're interested in things like GraphQL, that's another, I would say do the S3 thing that we just did. And then if you want to kind of level up to something that's more extreme, check out Luke. Luke is one of our cloud developers as well. And he's been creating a series of videos around AppSync, which is a GraphQL service on AWS. So definitely check that out. Then we have a training site, training.serverlessguru.com. We're actually rolling out a couple of courses in the next month. And right now we have something called Serverless Introduction. So this will show how to basically get your hands dirty with serverless in a very basic starter way. And then we also have something called Serverless Plugins. So after you kind of go through this introduction course, you can actually start working with things like, we saw that one terminal command we could upload a website. Well, you saw how we had to manually create the S3 bucket. What if we also automated that part? And so that's kind of what the serverless part of this is. It basically teaches you how to automate the AWS services, and then we can use the CLI to make it easier to upload changes. And then this is part of my team. So Theme over here is one of the cloud developers that's helping out today. And then Jan Stoneman, and then we kind of take up a WeWork space or coffee shops around you all the time. I don't actually have a WeWork membership, so I just kind of like, I hitch off of Jan, and then we just roll around to the different places. So very startup-y. And yeah, and that's my presentation. Serverless Guru is hiring. We're looking for front-end developers, back-end developers, cloud developers. What we've realized is that every front-end developer can be a back-end developer and can be a cloud developer, because back-end development is JavaScript, front-end development is JavaScript, cloud development is JavaScript. So if you know JavaScript, you can be all three of those. It just takes a little bit of time and learning, and then you're there. So yeah, I think that wraps it up. I'm still here, so if y'all want to ask any questions or talk about what is it like working with AWS, Google, consulting, graduation, after code school, anything like that, definitely fire them off. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can you go back to that slide where you were showing those certifications?
Yeah.
And which ones have you taken?
I have
one.
Oh, yeah. So I have the Associate Solutions Architect and the Developer Associate. And then the one that I'll have to be doing, because we just got AWS partnership, so we have to we're at like the select tier of AWS partnership, and as you get more certifications, you can kind of like level up your company. And so the next one I'll be going after is this Solutions Architect Professional. But these two, the Associate Solutions Architect and Associate Developer, are the ones that I have. And these are really great because they're kind of like introductions. So they'll go through the services, and you actually build real stuff. It's not like taking a math test or something, or like whatever, like a college test. You're basically, it asks you build this database website connected together, and as long as you're following along with it and not just watching the videos, you should retain a lot of that stuff. So, but it blew my mind when I was coming from like Epicodus, and I just learned about like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and then we started jumping into like, oh, here's like databases and like APIs, and like it just goes like way off the rails really quick. And then after about a month of doing that, it was like the conversation that I could have. Like I couldn't really talk to anyone because like it was I was talking like servers and all that stuff. So yeah, that's
What's the process like to get those? Is it like an exam that you have to go take? Or?
Yeah. So there's this website here, this AWS certification. So if you log in there, you can actually schedule. It's kind of weird. Amazon has two companies that they provide the testing through. One company has testing all the way out like 3 hours from here, and the other one, I think Pearson, has stuff at like PSU and PCC Sylvania. So if you wanted to take a certification, you could go there. The basic exams, the associate ones, are like 150, and the professional ones are like 300. Yeah.
Coming out of a cold school, you went straight into getting the certifications, or did you start practicing on something to get ready for those certifications?
Yeah.
What was the process?
So my journey was a little bit weird. So I went to Epicodus, and then as I was learning like how to program and all that stuff, I started taking Udemy like classes, and then it was like a strike of luck. Basically, one of the people in the class, his brother was a cloud developer, and so then I was like, oh, cool. And then he was like, his brother told him that we should learn AWS, and so we started a study group. And I took it super seriously, and past that point, we started showing up once a week. And then the first thing they said was, "Serverless is the future," and I was like, what is serverless? I'm just starting, so I definitely want to be in the future, you know. And so I learned serverless immediately, and so I started building Alexa skills, which is works inside that serverless ecosystem. And for one of my group projects, while everyone else was building web applications, I did like a serverless application with Alexa. And then as graduation was coming, we did internships after. And instead of going to one of the internships there, I started my own internship and then recruited like 5 other people in my class to work on it. And that was really weird because but I went through it. I learned a whole bunch about AWS and authentication, which was a huge thing. So authentication, serverless, AWS, and then during that internship period, I took the 2 certifications like 1 week apart, and then got those, had the startup experience, could talk about AWS and serverless, all this stuff, and then had this random recruiter reach out to me on LinkedIn, and then that's how like Nike ended up happening. So. But it's definitely repeatable because I did not graduate from Stanford or something. I don't even have 2 years in college. So my background, as you saw at the very beginning, I could scroll back somewhere. Yeah, from fast food to World of Warcraft business to data entry to graduation to randomly working at Nike, and that was really crazy. That was like I can remember like the first day that I was there, and like they give you a desk. It's like a standing desk. You can move up and down, and there's like new MacBook computers and stuff, and they have like free notebooks, and there's like cafeterias, and you just kind of like I like took a step back and I'm like, oh, this is what it looks like when you made it. Oh my gosh, and that was like a dream that I didn't know that I actually had fully, and then just kind of all of a sudden happened because a lot of times when you're going through the recruiting process, it can be very like frustrating because even if you have the skills, sometimes you only talk to HR people or people that they know a little bit about technology, but they can't go into the details. And as you're starting, you can't really articulate everything. So like you just talk about your technical details. And so I was lucky enough that the recruiter put me in touch with the lead developer on the team that I got hired to. And so then when I talked about AWS, all these services, he knew exactly what I was talking about. And he saw the potential in me to potentially do something, right? So if you find that kind of golden nugget or whatever, that somebody that actually understands what you're talking about and can see that, for instance, like me, so like most of the people in the company or whatever are from code schools because if you know JavaScript, in my opinion, you can be a backend developer, you can be a cloud developer, you can do pretty much anything. And if you're motivated, there's no sky's the limit, in my opinion.
Do you, as serverless guru, do you guys mostly work with AWS apps?
Yeah, so there's actually a preference. The apps that we build are with AWS. We also use Google Cloud. So the Google Cloud part, it's not to hit the buzzwords because obviously like companies talk about like multi-cloud, AWS, Google Cloud together, because they're worried about like vendor lock-in and all that stuff. We use AWS primarily because we believe it's the best to build these type of applications with Angular and React. So what I would say is AWS is like our prime area, and then Google Cloud is like supporting. And what's really nice about all this is that because you're working with something that is kind of just clicking a couple buttons, the way that I like to think about AWS and Google Cloud is they created all these powerful services like database as a service. And what that means is you press one button, database server is running, it now scales like infinitely, like Lyft uses it, for like ride sharing, and you can tap into it and pay like nothing. And that gives you a lot of flexibility because if it's one button on AWS, it's one button on Microsoft, or it's one button on Google Cloud. And so then you can kind of like link these things together and kind of say, okay, what's the best service or what's the best tool for this? Yeah, but mostly AWS. Yeah. Yeah.
Have you seen the limitation of the serverless program?
Yeah, like limitations. So it's becoming less and less. To give everyone like context on when we say serverless, there's still a server that's running your stuff. There's always a server. There's always a computer somewhere. But the serverless means that we're not actually going into the server, creating like an Apache web server or something. like as you saw, I just dropped files into a bucket and I clicked a couple buttons. There's a server running that website somewhere, but I didn't actually do it. Limitations around that, it used to be stuff that was like long-running processes. So, for instance, if you were trying to do something that took 15 minutes to run, serverless may be the wrong solution. But less so now because it's almost like you can kind of come from a traditional mindset in software development where you try to port everything over to like cloud and serverless. And sometimes that doesn't work. Like we do migrations, and they'll be like, "Oh, just take my stuff and then put it on the cloud, and then we're good." And what happens is that you just basically dump something on the cloud. Now it costs more money. It runs less efficient, and really you want to like re-architect. And so if you have like a long-running process that was like 15 minutes, you could break it apart into like 5-minute chunks, and then have something that's basically queuing all that together. And that's how you can kind of get around these like areas where maybe serverless is the wrong solution, but actually if you re-architect it, it can actually be super efficient. But other than that, I would say it's still very new. So like documentation, learning, getting up to speed, there's not a lot of resources. What I would recommend though is that if you're trying to get started in similar stuff that I'm doing, a cloud doc guru, even though they're not a competitor, but they're kind of a competitor. They actually have a full, from like 0 to hero in serverless, and it's like 14 and a half hours, and it shows you how to do stuff on Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, AWS, build a website with ReactJS, do authentication, all this like really deep things. So I would check them out, and then check out Serverless Guru, training.serverless Guru here in a month, because I'm working on one right now that's like at like 15 videos. So. I really appreciate y'all bringing me out. I love talking about this stuff. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was wondering, is there a reason why you were using Yarn as opposed to NPM?
Yeah, so I follow the terminal output there. You can use NPM as well. When it comes to NPM versus Yarn, there's kind of like a war going on where NPM and Yarn do the same thing. They manage your dependencies. So Yarn apparently can run in parallel. So if you had like 15 dependencies, it'll start downloading them at the same time, versus NPM, which is sequential, so it'll go like one by one. And so something that takes NPM 15 seconds could be 3 seconds with Yarn, and that's why a lot of people use Yarn versus NPM.
Yeah. Cloud Guru, what was that?
Yeah,
Website?
acloud.guru. Let me pull it up. Yeah, this one here.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, they can open it up. Yeah, so maybe we can actually find the course that I was talking about, because that might be, lower the friction. It loads. Okay, it's taking, so, yeah, the acloud Guru and then serverless course. And then, oh, there we go. And so their whole website is actually built off of what we did with like S3 buckets and dropping files in there. Obviously it's very robust and they have a ton of stuff, but if you took their entire site and you broke it down to like the very basic amount, they run their whole website off of an S3 bucket like we just did. So let me search for serverless. Yeah, so the complete serverless course. It's 14 and a half hours, 86 lessons. And it goes through like best practices, choosing a cloud provider, like the ecosystem of serverless or of services and tools, patterns, architectures, security cost. But I would look at this as some stuff that doesn't go into too much detail about more complicated things, because it's trying to show like Google Cloud, Microsoft, and AWS. But what it does give you is enough information to talk about it. So once you can talk about it, then a company can hire you and then pay you to learn how to do it. So that's, that's part of that was the weirdest thing when I first got hired, was what time do I spend, like, should I already know everything, or are you paying me to learn stuff? And the answer is, you're a developer. If you already knew how to do it, then you would just give it to them, right? So they're always paying you to learn stuff, and that's money that they're willing to invest because it has cascading effects in the